Welcome to the Author's Corner with A.C. Campbell. Join us as we take a tour around the literary industry with interviews and features within and throughout the industry. And now, the show.
Well, my first and only book that came out December last year is called Don't Poo in the Pudding Bowl. And I know that's very British and it's not the normal thing you would normally say. If I just give you a little bit about my background, I taught in schools and post-16 education for nearly 37 years. And because I also taught a lot of sport and I managed teams, mostly I taught boys. So they would have this interesting way of interacting with me. And I felt it was quite often, not sure whether it's because I'm a Black woman and because they're boys, and they just go, oh, let's ask her these questions, let's see what she says. But they used to ask me really interesting questions. And I used to come home every day and my son would go, why are they asking me these questions? And I just go, that's all teachers those questions. He'd say, no, they don't, Mom, you need to write them down. And so 4 or 5 years ago, I started to write them down. And then what happened, I decided last year I'd take early retirement because I wanted to travel. So my husband and I were writing a travel website. And of course, I couldn't go anywhere. So I was literally traveling in my mind. And my son came back, then he was traveling too. He came back from South Korea and said, you know what you have to do? And I went, well, what have I got to do? He said, you have to write that book. And I just went, oh, I thought that was just for me, just for us. He went, no, the world needs to know about all that stuff that goes on between you and your students. So that's where I am now.
Awesome. So, read the book. So, tell me, how did it feel writing? How long did it take you to write the book?
I think I started it about 3 or 4 years ago. After we had these few conversations with my son, I went, okay, so I'll write a few little stories about things that went on. And so each day, what would happen is that I'd come home and I'd go, guess what happened to me today? Guess what they said? My husband and son would go, what? What did they do? And I went, yeah, happens all the time. And so I started to write it down. As we got more people into the house, friends would come over or family would come over, I'd just go, oh, just have a read of this. What do you think? And I wouldn't say anything. I'd wait and see if they started to laugh. And I thought, well, they're laughing because we're putting food on the table. So really, it doesn't really make a difference. The test is going to be when I get the thing out there, if I ever do. So as things would happen, staff would say to me at work, Maxine, oh, here's a news story for you. Have you heard this one? Or have you heard what's happening? And I'd start to write them down. So it's all been around me or about me. But as I've been teaching for 37 years, there's a lot of story to tell. And also because when I started teaching, so education in the UK is a little bit different to USA. So I taught in secondary schools. So it was from 11 to 16 in my first 3 or 4 years. Then I went on to colleges, and that's from 16 to 19 or 20. And that's where most of my years were. So if you remember a long, long time ago when you were developing hormonal boy and you like to do sport, things would happen and you'd ask these questions, you'd go, oh, I'll ask Maxine about that. And because I taught more like physiology as well, about the body, they'd ask me questions about the body, not necessarily to do with sport, thinking, I don't know what they thought, whether they thought they'd embarrass me or it's a question they really thought I would answer. But, you know, if you've had a child yourself, nothing embarrasses you at all. So I would just give them a straight answer. I'd say, just come back in the break and we'll have a chat about that. Or, you know, they do things like you're working on a lesson and you hear them chatting away. And I'd just go, well, let the class hear it. Then they'd go, oh, no, we're not talking about anything. Or even worse, they'd go, well, what do you think to this? And I'd think, oh, my goodness, what have I put myself into? So because I also, I'm a great advocate of being in the outdoors and learning outdoors. So I'm a big walker, I'm a skier, I'm a climber, so I'm a rambler. I would take students out on outdoor activities. And because it's different from when you are in the classroom, you're looking after them 24/7. lots of things happen, and they do things that you just won't believe. They try and climb out of windows, and they do all kinds of things, or they'd be getting lost somewhere, or they make some comments that you would never think children would make, or 16-year-olds would make. Because I used to teach in areas that were very, very deprived. And so I would have lots of black and minority children that, if you try and picture, if we're living in the city, so my city is about 500,000 people, and some of the students, even at 16, 17, would never be allowed to go into the city centre by themselves. They'd be escorted, or when they came to college, the parents would drop them off at the door. So when we used to think they're going to be out in the world of work sometime soon, we need to get them used to being independent, to being on their own. We would take them on residentials. And being a city like Sheffield, we are surrounded by countryside, so we're surrounded by lots of animals. Some of them had never seen any animals up close. So it was another kind of education altogether. So the thing that they would say and ask and do, you would never dream would come from their mouths. So a lot of the book is about how they learned, what they learned, and how I helped teach them through. And it's just breaking barriers, particularly when you also have Muslim girls and they're not allowed to be out on their own. And so as a black female teacher, and there aren't many females that do excuse me, outdoor activities. So the advantage for me is I could be with them and I could do all the things that they were never able to do, and I could show them all those things, like, you know, jumping off a bridge and abseiling, climbing and so on. I'd go, oh my God, she can do that at her age, then maybe I can too. So it's not always just the funny things, but it's a breakthrough moments as well about these kids suddenly just going, oh my God, I can do this, and then jump in the water from a canoe, having not even known what the paddle was or seen a canoe before. So it was, when I think about it now, there's a lot that they learned that were life skills as well as subjects. So, you know, that's what the book's about. And I can see your face and you're going, oh, really? Really? Yeah.
No, actually, I think it's pretty awesome. Here we have a term that we call cabin fever. Cabin fever basically, if you keep kids confined and, you know, keep kids confined, they get antsy, they need to get out. They need to have that adventure. You know, being stuck in a classroom for several months and not getting out, and
yeah,
I mean, basically what you're doing is awesome.
Well, I was one of those kids that would just wander off somewhere when I was younger, and so I always liked the outdoors. I always liked to read. If you'd find me on a wall somewhere, you know, hours on end reading, or just wandering around. Or I always played sport anyway, and I knew that somehow my future would be part of that. And so the fact I could teach them about nature, and think that a lot of sport is quite expensive to participate in. But here, if you think about it, I'm saying you can do this stuff and it doesn't cost you much. You just need a sturdy pair of shoes. We are surrounded by the most beautiful countryside within half an hour of where everybody lives in Sheffield. They can just get a bus, they can walk out and they can find nature, they can exercise, it's healthy, it's cheap, especially when we were locked down for your mental health as well. That kind of thing is just amazing, you know. So I'm just so grateful that I live where I live, and I've been able to teach some of them those kind of skills that they can now do those things.
Yeah, like you said, it costs nothing to explore your area, explore your neighborhood, explore the outside of your school. It costs nothing.
Yeah.
So see, I've got a good author, you're a great teacher. I mean, come on now. This is, no, it's like so. But so my next question is: you have all these stories, and we as authors don't think of this next question as being negative, because it's something we authors are guilty of, but not on purpose. We selfishly keep the adventures to ourselves, but we just have to share them, or somebody will force us to share them. And your son actually came to you and say, "Excuse me, but hello, you need to."
Yeah. He's a force behind this, and he's a traveller himself, so he understands all that, you know. And when he was little, when I was teaching anatomy, when he was tiny, I'd bring him in as a live anatomy lesson, because he his limbs weren't quite formed properly, as in he'd be hyperextended. So if I'm doing like bones and physiology, I'd show his arms, and so the students could name all the bones and muscles, and he'd talk about when he goes out skiing. So they could see it as a black kid, oh, he goes out and he does that kind of stuff too, so we can do it as well. And that's part of his normal makeup. So he'd be asking all these questions. And when I played, because I played competitive volleyball too, he was a volleyball kid, so he was a court kid, so he knew how to behave around the court or what to do. So he already had those language skills, so he could talk to other older kids, and he had no fear. So the fact that he was behind me, I thought was amazing. But he's pushing, going, no, Mom, you need to just tell some of those stories because you can't keep those to yourself, you know. And then my husband also, back in the early days, he'd come on some of the trips with me too, and so made it a whole family thing. And so it's always really interesting when he's just going, well, you know, I'll participate too. And it's nice for them to see that a whole family can do this together, and not just me, but they see the other side.
I just really wish that you could actually come here, but we can actually get your books. I can actually get one of your books, but I wish you could actually come here because I think that's a lot of a problem in our community, in our Black community. We're sort of, a lot of us are stuck in sort of a bubble to where we don't think we can get out of the bubble and go explore. You know, just different things. We're conditioned to believe that you have to have money to get out to the country, or you have to have money to explore, which
yeah, I totally understand that. And I know when I first started skiing too, about when I was in my early 20s, and we could ski in Europe, so it's quite easy for us to get to it. So it would take us maybe 3-4 hours on the plane. And I'm sure there might be areas in the US where you can go to. Yes, it can be expensive, but there are also cheaper ways of doing it too, like you can self-cater and so on. And I remember the first time I went, and we were the only, I'd look around, my son and I did this all the time because we used to travel quite a lot in my big holidays, and I used to take him away to Australia and New Zealand. And we'd have this non-verbal communication thing. We'd look around and we'd go, yeah, nobody like us here, but we're okay. And we knew what we meant by that. We just suss out the fear and go, yeah, but we're all right. So when we were in Europe skiing, we were the only Black family there. Then 10-15 years later, I'd look around and go, 3 generations over there. I think we've done it. We need to move on. So when you see the grandparents, the parents, and the grandkids, and they're all Black and on the ski slopes, you think, this is amazing. Because I remember when we first started off, it was just us. You know, so that development in Europe was just incredible. So the more you see, the more you can do. You just help each other to climb, don't you? You know, and I don't see myself as anything special, but I know when I stand there in front of my students, they'll look at me and just go, well, if she can teach, we can do that too. Because I remember having, it was a Ghanaian student, but he lived in Italy for quite some time and then came to the UK. And when he first came in my class, he stopped me and said, you're the first Black teacher I've seen. When I was in Italy, I had no role models, but you are amazing. And I now know that because you're doing this, I can do so many other things. And I just thought, we are put here for a purpose. And so our aim is to show the students that we can do this, and because we've done that, you can climb even higher. Don't let that ceiling stop you. Yes, we know it's hard and we have to work harder, but the rewards are there and we can do it. But it takes some of us to break through. But that's so good that he came up and stopped me and said, oh my goodness, you're the first Black teacher that I've seen. And I was taken aback and thinking, well, I've been teaching 20 odd years, but he's come from another country and his experience is different. So this, luckily, is so positive for him. So I know throughout my years of teaching that I've left something behind so other people can come and say, I remember when you taught me and this is what you did. And I might forget that myself, but they don't forget. That's what teaching's about. It's about the long course, it's about the marathon. It's not necessarily about the sprint, because I know I've taught thousands of people, and I might have forgotten some of them, because you do, but some of them will come back and say thank you when they see you. And it is a struggle at times, but some of them will do that, and you just go, oh, it was worthwhile.
I have to go back and I have to correct you on something. um, a minute back, you say you're not that special, but anyone who teaches young people to actually believe in themselves and go out and knowing that there's something beyond what they are, that's special. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, you.
Now, yeah, I know what you mean, but it was just something that I thought, no, I want to do this. And you know, I remember when I was 13, 14, and we were doing like careers, and we had a careers talk. I remember going home saying to my dad, I want to teach. And he was going, no, no, you can't teach. Have you not seen those the graduates, the cleaning toilets with no jobs? And I literally had to have this verbal battle with my dad, and it went, no, I know I can be good at this. And I'm so glad I was that stubborn girl that thought, I can do this because I know I can influence people, because there's so many of us who can be doing better and doing more types of jobs. And there's so many more jobs that I've never thought of nowadays. But I just thought, no, I know I can influence minds in a good way. But I didn't particularly think it's because I was black. I just thought because I know I can do it. And I think I've always been that kind of force of nature that didn't think there's anything special. Well, you know, when you stand there and you're teaching maybe a class of white children, a class of black children, your attitude will change, because with black kids, you know where they're coming from. They know where you come from. They look at you and they think, I can't use the same language I can use the white teachers, because the white teachers won't understand. But they look at me and they just go, you know what we're talking about. And I just go, yes, I know what you're talking about. Now let's get on and let's push through, you know. So yeah, it's that interesting juxtaposition of being in those two worlds that you can manage to keep yourself in, which is intriguing at times.
See, I know your husband and your son are both very proud of you with that. So that, that's something you should really pat yourself on the back for, because it's it's not just about you, it's about everybody you've influenced. So everyone, I mean, I'm just sitting here smiling through this whole interview, because I mean, we could use 20 of you here.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm very serious about that.
But you know what's been good, and this is the interesting thing, because I published the book, someone from one of the local universities bought the book and then messaged me, and I, in the front the blurb, but it says that I've early retired and so on, and just said, well, would you be interested in doing some work at the university? And I just thought, I've been trying to talk to you guys for years, thinking, well, I'm an experienced person, I can influence the up and coming teachers, and because of the book now, even though I bring it across as being quite a humorous relationship kind of book with the students, now I am teaching or trying to educate new minds in terms of the young teachers going into sixth forms and tell them how it is. So I'm really grateful I can do it from the bottom up and from the top down. And I just think because of the amount of experience that I've had and the book that's come out, it's now helped me to be in another role of a kind of retired as I am, that I'm now going and I'm observing young new, possibly qualified teachers and then telling them how it is. So I'm so grateful for that.
Awesome. Now my next question is, how has the book been received by a lot of people?
When I started to write it, unfortunately, a very well-known black barber in Sheffield had recently died, and I'd gone to the wake, and I saw quite a few of my ex-students there, but these ex-students were more like 45 to 50. So I saw them, and we recognized each other straight away, and then I went, oh, Anthony, would go, oh, Miss Blake, as they do that thing. And I just say, so I'm kind of writing this book, and one of them would look and go, really? Are you? I said, he said, am I in it? I went, yeah, you're in it. I said, but here's what I want to say. It's about funny stuff. It's not about anything particular. Some things silly, just your behaviours and how we manage. And I said, so I'm going to change the name. And he just went, no, don't change my name. Just spell it right. So everybody I know, all of the students that I've seen, as much as possible, that I told that are in the book, who are all happy to have their names in the book. And the rush for them to buy the book, of course, they've got a vested interest. But what is even more interesting, a lot of them have said, I never read a full book until I read yours. And so that's made me even more proud to think, oh my goodness, mine's the first book you've read. And I know that it's about them, but they are so proud that they are in the book and they're reading it and their friends are in the book. And so they have this personal investment all about it. So that made me glow, and then being at this wake, and I saw so many familiar Black faces from when I taught them at school. And you don't think anything, you just think, yeah, you educate them, you move on, you go, they grow, they go somewhere else. I mean, a number of them that came over and went, you just don't know the impression that you left with us, that you had in our lives. You are our first Black role model. And oh my goodness, we've got on to do this, and my kids are now doing this because of you. And I wanted to cry that day. And I just thought, I never thought we'd have that impact, because it's a struggle at times when you're trying to manage and you're disciplining and you're trying to teach them about life, not just about subjects, because I feel that I teach them about life and how to deal with those things. And then they come back and tell me what a positive role I had in their lives up until now. And that was, 30 odd years ago. So I'm blown away. And I went to a former colleague. It was her funeral a few weeks ago, which is obviously really devastating. And her husband came up to me and said, oh my goodness, she's talked so much about you and the book and how much joy it brought her. And I didn't think of what it would be. For me, I just think, oh, I've got to cope with all the criticism now, and am I able to do that? But what I wasn't thinking about was, how would I then cope with the praise about this is what life is like, and these are the funny bits, and you never see the funny bits. You just see all the pedagogy, all the education, but not the relationships that are being built and how you then work with other people. So that brought a lot of joy from both the students and both the teachers. And so the staff and senior management who knew that I was writing a book, they were really eager to buy it, and the comments and the reviews have just been amazing. So I'm so pleased, really pleased.
Have you seen The Author's Corner with H.D. Campbell? It's the best show you're not watching. Every week we have authors, editors, artists, and others from various industries. There are 3 ways to watch Author's Corner, primarily on our YouTube channel, HD Television, on our HD Television Facebook page, and on our media page at www.hdcampbellmedia.com. It's The Author's Corner with H.D. Campbell. Check it out weekly, and as always, let your writing fuel your spirit. And God bless you.
I know it's like a bunch of mixed emotions, because I know it's, your students in the book, you got everybody just, I know as an author myself, it's just an amazing feeling, but it's got to be a bigger feeling for you, because your book impacts so many people positively.
Yeah.
And I know that this has to feel good. So my next question is, have you influenced people across the water?
Oh, right. Well, this is what I'm struggling with a little bit. I've talked to a lot of people on podcasts and so about education, and also a lot of people are curious as to how I manage being a Black person in the UK. Are the situations similar? Are they different? And it's nice to be able to talk around those subjects and just go, okay, these are my struggles. This is how I work. But I also think that because I was not just a teacher, but I was a teacher in management. So I had a big team that I managed too. So as a black woman, I was able to influence them and think about the curriculum and look at other aspects too. So there was that the commonness across the water of, right, this is how education works for you. And also because I clearly expressed the establishments I worked in were quite deprived areas. One was very white and very deprived, and then my last one was more non-white and very deprived. So I've had two different aspects of how I deal with the white working class who were deprived and the black working class who are very deprived, and how I get my head around those. And so they found that really quite fascinating to think there are all these different elements within the UK. And I think because you're in your own country, you don't see wider how it works elsewhere. And so it's helped me to understand a little bit more about how that then works and how our education is here. So it's an ongoing thing. Yeah, but it's getting there. It's getting there.
Yeah, I love it. Again, like I say, we need 20 of you over here. I'm loving this interview. I'm loving your attitude. I actually love your attitude. You have a beautiful attitude about everything.
Thank you.
Which is so awesome. And you're so positive. So we're just gonna make this next question just hard. But I've got to ask: have you received any negativity or blowback from your book, or any influences or anything?
You know what I thought I might have done, but at the moment, no. Which and I know it's sure not the answer you expected. As a first book, I think I was just what I was saying is it's going to be my only book because I think I remembered everything. But what was really interesting when I started doing the promotions, all these people started going, "Oh my goodness, that happened to me, and I'm a teacher. This never happened to me. Oh, that happened to you. How did you handle it?" And I think because I was willing to show levels of exposure of myself, that I don't know everything and that things can happen, but how do you get out of it? Then that made other people think it's okay. Because I seem, people will tell you if they read the book, I seem to go through ridiculous amounts of physical exposures or people approaching me and asking me some really quite intimate questions. And how do I answer those? Well, you know, this is why I thank God that I am this color, that I'm a black woman, a woman of color, because I think sometimes when they ask me these questions, I think, oh, I feel my body going a shade of purple right now, but they can't tell. So I'm just going to keep calm and I'm going to answer it the best way I know how. And if it's a question they generally want answering, I'm open to answering many questions, you know, but I might just think, well, come back and see me at the end of the day if they're really serious. Because kids are the kids. Now we'll try and delay lessons as much as possible. But generally, no, there's been no negativity, not from the people that have been in the book, not from the people from the institutions. I haven't named them, but they will know who they are. You know, they'll see themselves or similar names in the book and just go, oh, I remember that trip. Because I've just done so many trips and I've talked about, this is where you learn a lot about your students and the pupils when you go away on trips with them and they are not with the parents. They can let their hair down, they can be a little bit more free. And this is when I get no sleep because I know I'm the person responsible or the staff are. And so literally I can be sleeping out in the corridors because I don't want any of the boys trotting across to the girls' dorm or out a window or doing something stupid because they don't think, and they don't, because they get some freedom. I remember one of the trips, you know, talked about going to the Lake District, which is a beautiful, quite quintessentially English countryside. The only reason why we could have boys and girls and Muslims were if the accommodations were miles apart, and we had to make them 10 miles apart. The girls were in one hostel, the boys were in another. And I overheard the boys saying one day, they're going to walk out and meet the girls at their hostel. And I went, well, good luck. There are no lights. There are a few mountains to get across, and it's 10 miles. So they don't think anything of it. They'll just think, yeah, we're going to go and do it and meet the girls. You know, so I have to have ears, eyes everywhere. I come back physically exhausted because I know that they have to be safe because their parents entrusted me with them. And it takes a lot to get them there in the first place. So, yeah, quite stressful times. But when you see how they grow within a week, sometimes you can't get that from year of education. But to put them under stresses that are totally alien to them, where they have to have command of the bodies or get up a mountain, or lead a party, that is when they see that they can do it, that is amazing. There's nothing else in the world like it. It really isn't.
Yeah, oh, you're fine. You're fine. It sounds like to me like you're. You know what I'm gonna. You know what I'm just gonna just say it. You're like negativity repellent. Whenever something negative comes, you just rise above it. In fact, everything that you talk about, and that is so beautiful, is so inspiring to where if you saw negativity coming through the door, it's not coming in. I'm gonna do everything in my power not to let you in.
Well, I did have a reputation, and they knew that once the kids are in my class, they can't misbehave. They know that once they come through those doors, they are here to learn. It's and in the UK we are very lucky because mostly our education is free up to 19. And I just say, if you're in another country, you're paying for this. And don't think just because you walk through the door, you're going to get a certificate. No, you have to learn, you have to stay behind, you have to strive, and mostly you have to struggle. If you don't struggle, you're not learning. If you're comfortable, you're not learning. You have to get to an area where of uncomfortability, where your mind is going, what if that happens? How does this work? And once I can see that that's happening, I just go, you're at the right place. You haven't got to get the answer, but the fact that you're asking me those what if questions, I know the pathway that you're on is the right pathway. But they know that it's going to be hard, and they do struggle. And they say that, do you make these words at Maxine? I go, no, nothing to do with me, but that's how it is. You're going to have to learn them and how they apply. Because if you're going to be professional one day, you need to go out with that working knowledge, and that's what I'm giving you. So they have to be prepared for all of that.
Okay. So my next question for you is, all right, how can we get to know you? How can we buy your book, and where can we find your book?
Well, it's on Amazon. You can get it on there. It's also you can order it through your major shops, so Barnes and Noble and so on. You can get it through there. You can order it, and so it's not a problem. If you're, I know over here, I've been so lucky that the libraries have now taken it up in Sheffield. So I'm really excited for them to be in the libraries because not everybody can afford a book. So I'm happy for it to be there, and I don't know how that would work in America. I know it's a massive thing, but the local bookstores, you'd have to order it, particularly it's Christmas time. If you really want to laugh and think, glad that happened to her, not me, then it's a good one to buy. Really is a good one to buy. Not just because I wrote it.
Awesome. Now I know we're still sort of in and out of COVID. I know you're not feeling well right now, but do you have any events coming up, any virtual events, anything?
I've got let me think. I'm hoping to do and this is nice because my local library has the city library's taking it up, the book up, and putting it in all the satellite libraries. They're asking me to do a talk at some point, which I just thought, oh, that's really nice. So things have started to happen, but the COVID numbers are still quite high. So I'm just tentatively working my way through, well, how can I get my name out there? So I will let you know when things happen. But obviously we need people to be really safe, first of all. I'm on plenty of podcasts, so if anybody else wants to talk to me, and I've done lots of radio interviews too, but lots of UK ones, but I think I've been on a couple in Baltimore, I think, in radio station, which has been interesting. But America's a big place to try and break through.
Awesome. So my next question is, how can we get to know you personally as an author?
Oh, what, you don't think I've exposed myself enough already? Um, right. So me as a person, okay. So what else do I do? I sing gospel in the gospel choir. That for me during COVID was really hard because we haven't been able to do it. And I tell you how badly I needed to do it. When we were coming out of lockdown in May, my husband and I booked our to stay in a hotel for our wedding anniversary. And then the choir was asked, and we do kind of paid private gigs too. So we were asked to do this house gospel with a DJ doing an event at this restaurant outside. And I had to say to my husband, right, you know I love you, but I've been asked to sing with the choir. I've got to sing. I just said, I need it for my soul. And he said, yeah. And I went, well, what do you mean? Yeah, don't say so quickly. He said, well, it's not like we've only married 2 years. We've been married 35 years. So I had to get out on that stage and just sing my heart out. And my soul was blessed. And I just thought, I needed this so much. I needed to sing so much. So we're gathering momentum for Christmas and doing a few Christmas lights and turn-ons and events and doing a few private gigs and so on. So I'm really hoping that will be we'll be able to do a lot more. So I do spend a lot of time doing lots in the choir, and obviously I work with a fostering panel too. So I'm on a panel where we look at potential foster parents with the Q&As and make decisions on whether we think they are suitable or not, as well as working at the university with the potential teachers, and I volunteer at a feedback too. So I'm not really retired. I feel like I'm more busy than I've ever been when I was teaching. But I like it. I like the variety. I realise that I like to have my fingers in lots of pies, and I like to do lots of things in my head, never stay still. And of course, I exercise loads too. Not recently, but yeah. So I have an active lifestyle. Anything else you want to know?
Oh yeah. Also, yeah, 'cause you like loud. No sleep. You get very little sleep. Like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you have a website?
Yes, it is maxineblake.com. We're doing a little work on the upgrading at the moment, so just hang on in there. So I'll tell you a little bit about me, that my family came from the West Indies, namely Jamaica. And so I'm the product of a Jamaican upbringing, which is interesting being in England. So you go home to the Caribbean lifestyle, just like you would do elsewhere. And you learn how to adapt, how to behave, and how to talk, and so on. And so the church I was brought up in was a Pentecostal Apostolic church, the first off to singing. So all those call and response kind of singing, that was me. In fact, sometimes when I used to teach, I keep threatening to do a singing lesson with the students or a dance lesson so they could make them uncomfortable again, and just get to understand their bodies and how they work and so on. Because, life isn't compartmentalized. You have to use everything with it. And so it's something that makes them think a little bit, make them aware of what they're doing is all good. If they're talking about me later on, then I know that I've captured their attention. So I try and bring everything into my lessons to try and make them think, oh yeah, that's how that works. That's what happens there. So we love holding dinner parties. My husband's a great cook. So yeah, we have people around to eat, which is nice. So it hasn't happened very often, but we hope to pick it up again.
I love how you teach. See, that's one of the big things I love how you teach. You teach your students that life isn't in a box. Yep. Your life is not mapped out for you. You map your own life. You go out and build your own life. I love that. I mean, that is like one of the biggest takeaways I have from this interview. Your life is just not in a box.
Thank you.
So, actually, my final question, which you've been doing this the whole time, but I always give my authors the final word in which they can give advice, shout outs, and words of wisdom, whatever you want to say. The floor is yours.
Oh gosh, life is for learning. You never stop, never be closed off to anything, but don't just accept things either. If someone comes with you with what they say is their truth, question them, but in a nice way, because you want to know yourself, because you want to know that their truth that you are going to talk about is really the truth or just something they made up. Read, read, and read, because there's nothing like learning about somebody else's experience, where they've come from, where they've been, where they're going to. And I travel wherever and whenever you can. It hasn't got to be expensive, but traveling also opens your mind. It opens you up to other cultures, other languages, other foods, because we are so used to our own surroundings and we are comfortable in that. And again, you want to make yourself a little bit more uncomfortable by just getting out there a little bit and experiencing other things. You can rent a few places with your friends and just travel about, go with your family, go for walks in the countryside, just smell that fresh air. And yeah, read, travel, make friends, enjoy life, because we just don't know when it's going to end. We really don't know. But learning's not about being in the building. You learn wherever you go. It never ever stops. Never stops.